Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we discuss the astrological energies of August 27th until September 3rd. As we are now in Virgo season and eclipse season energies are underway, we're going to look at Venus in Leo opposing Pluto in Aquarius, Uranus in Gemini sextiles Neptune in Aries for the first time this week. And this is going to be an ongoing transit that unfolds into 2027 as they will have 5 exact sextiles. So that's a big deal. We'll be looking at that together. We also will have Saturn retrograde re-enter Pisces and Mercury enters Virgo this week. We'll be discussing all of that, plus touching on some Joan of Arc themes that are coming up in the collective. And I'm going to end the show with some brief highlights of how the real world is revealing the astrology of right now, as it always is when we can connect the dots and see it through this astrological lens. So let's get started here. And I want to begin actually with that Virgo new moon that we just had at 0 degrees of Virgo. It can help to look back on anything that was initiated for you as the sun moved into Virgo on August 22nd and had that exact new moon conjunction at 0 degrees, followed by Uranus squaring the sun and the moon. So that was last weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it was really important because it opened up Virgo season energies and themes that you're meant to see, that's meant to come to your awareness, that will be rapidly shifting and changing throughout Virgo season since we are in eclipse energies. So that new moon at 0 degrees was an initiation, and in a few weeks, we're going to have the Virgo solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Virgo, closing out Virgo season. So you can see how this is a very special journey right now with these Virgo bookends of new moons and eclipse energies. Consider this a month of Virgo energy mastery, where we are meant to check in on the little things and determine, does this support my energy? Is this correct for me right now? Virgo is where we're able to refine and fine-tune what is occurring in our lives, to be meticulous and analytical, to determine if it's truly raising your energy or sinking it. Virgo is commonly associated with service, work, performance, excellence, usefulness, and purpose. Virgo being mutable earth is very much about the practical usage of what we do every day. Does it matter? Is it important? Is it contributing to something bigger than myself? Am I doing it for others from a solid intention? Or am I operating from an unconscious place of servitude that is wearing me out and no longer aligns? During these few weeks, the Virgo energies are going to be front and center, asking you to remain flexible and adaptable and very honest with yourself. I feel that this Virgo season is where we're going to have a lot of no's. No, I don't like that anymore. No, I don't like that shirt. No, I don't want to wear those socks. No, I don't want to do that project. Because when you are more tuned in to what your energy really needs and what you're truly feeling, you drop it out of the mind, which is where the Virgo energy excels. There's a lot of intelligence in the Virgo perceptions and processing, but sometimes it's too analytical, too methodical, and it can miss the forest for the trees. Virgo is meant to focus on this particular tree, this detail, this thing right in front of me. But with the South Node in Virgo and the North Node in Pisces, we're actually meant to step away. And I see it levitating. We're meant to be levitating and looking at, how am I truly using my energy that is healthy, satisfying, uplifting, and from the best place within me. So since the new moon at 0 degrees of Virgo, perhaps you've had new awareness around what you no longer want. Virgo brings up our patterns, our unconscious programming, the things we've always done. The things we've always done maybe because it brought us a result or it took us somewhere or it was never challenged. This Virgo season is meant to challenge that and have you go deeper into whether or not something is really serving you or depleting you. And that square from Uranus and Gemini would have brought in new insights and awareness. as if there was a zap of understanding of, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't good for me. This isn't correct. I don't even like this. I'm ready to change and be different. Ultimately, there will be an elevation that unfolds throughout Virgo season, if that's your intention. But this is where we are being honest with ourselves around how we are evolving and releasing habits and routines that we no longer want to give energy to. And so look at this on a daily basis. Maybe you're going to have a new morning routine. Maybe you're going to change what you put in your coffee. Maybe there's something you're realizing about your workout or exercise regime that is now boring you, and you want to make small changes. Virgo is about incremental steps where we're not meant to overwhelm ourselves by redoing everything at once, but rather look at the quick wins you can focus on and where you can make those pivotal small shifts just to give it a go. The other part of Virgo is to loosen up the energy and not be so hard on yourself that it has to work perfectly the first time, or I have to get it right the first time. Loosen up the energy and be, let me just try this. It's just an experiment. How can I be looser in my approach and not have these really high standards of myself when it can take time to integrate a new practice and to see the results pay off? So that will be a part of how Virgo season continues to unfold. And as we progress into September, we will keep discussing this, since the South Node in Virgo is going to clear out anything that is no longer correct or in alignment for you. On August 27th, Venus in Leo opposes Pluto retrograde in Aquarius at 1 degree, 51 minutes. This is the second opposition between Venus in Leo and Pluto in Aquarius, as they had their first standoff back in July 2024, so last year. If you can recall perhaps anything that came up then, maybe it's coming back around now. But I feel this is an important aspect to discuss, even if it's already passed by the time you hear this episode, because what is occurring here is part of a theme that each Leo planet is experiencing through the opposition to Pluto. Now, Venus in Leo is about being proud and strong in who you are, showing up with bravery and courage to share your gifts, to stand in your power and be in your light. When she opposes Pluto, there is a fear of being seen, a fear of attracting, a fear of perhaps what is being misinterpreted, misaligned, and misunderstood. The opposition to Pluto always brings up a fear as well. So Venus in Leo is facing this fear that Pluto retrograde in Aquarius represents. And I thought it was important to talk about this aspect because I believe it relates to a bigger theme that's unfolding, especially into September. I'm going to touch on that in just a moment. But let's understand how Venus in Leo is about standing strong with her crown. And even though we know that kings and queens wore crowns to signify their power and demonstrate their superiority, it was also meant to be an interpretation to their connection to their divine right and being deeply connected to the divine through their rulership. In modern times, we can see how this type of supremacy is outdated in terms of where humanity is going. But the spiritual symbolism of the crown is how it directly connects to the crown chakra, and that we are each divinely connected to source, that we each have a divine right to be here and to love ourselves, to love our gifts, where we are standing strong in our sense of self, and to not compromise that, regardless of fear or forces or anything oppositional. Venus in Leo is asking you to fully own your light and have the courage to be more of yourself, because it's about showing up when circumstances are difficult that you develop more courage and strength. That is where you are that brave lion of Leo, is where you're doing something when it's the scariest and when it's the hardest. And so this is going to be part of an ongoing story that unfolds for many years to come. And so I wanted to give you this heads up because, again, something maybe that started last July 2024, now is a time to look at how are you stronger? How are you more courageous? And to fully own that with your crown on, queen. Crown on, crown chakra lit, deeply connected to your divine power and your divine right. Now, I feel this is important because as we move into September, we're going to see Saturn re-enter Pisces, and we're also going to have in October, Neptune retrograde re-enter Pisces. Saturn and Neptune returning to Pisces are also then reconnecting to the North Node in Pisces, which is part of a rare alignment to have all three of these in Pisces again. So let's pin this for a second because I need to touch on some other astrological transits that are unfolding before we get to September 1st here. But please note that this Venus in Leo opposing Pluto in Aquarius is bringing up themes that you are spiritually resolving, completing, and ending that do relate to this focus on Pisces energies. We'll circle back to that in just a moment, but I want to stay in chronological order here by discussing that on August 28th, we have the first exact sextile between Uranus and Gemini and Neptune retrograde in Aries at 1 degree 26 minutes. Now, this is a long-term unfolding aspect that moves us forward, and it lasts into 2027 as they have 5 exact sextiles. This is a big deal whenever the outer planets are in these exact alignments. And Uranus and Gemini is bringing in buzzy excitement, wild ideas, things that you suddenly remember, you suddenly realize, brings it into that Neptune retrograde in Aries, which is who you are becoming, the new parts of yourself that are opening up and are showing you more of who you can be in this lifetime, even when it's confusing and uncertain. This sextile is meant to switch it up, change things up, give you new levels of self-awareness, expand your self-concept and your self-identity. This is where you could be feeling like you are truly different. You're evolving. There are parts of yourself that are more online, more awake, more clear than ever before. This energy will change your lifestyle, and it leads to spiritual breakthroughs where you could suddenly see, I'm really good at this, or I really want that. It also could conversely move you away from things that are no longer of interest, no longer active or inspiring. This is a very inspirational connection here because Uranus and Gemini likes things to move quickly and be erratic, whereas Neptune in Aries is along for the ride, open to the new beginnings, whatever appears, how it unfolds. Let's just flow with it. And together, they can be opening up exciting revelations for you, showing you more of what's possible that you never thought could transpire. So this is encouraging active energy. It's exact August 28th for the first time. If you have planets or points at 0, 1, and 2 degrees of the air signs and the fire signs, this is working with you more personally. So 0, 1, and 2 degrees of the fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, or the air signs of Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, you might be sensing that there's more to come here. Exciting developments are underway. These can be fast-moving and unpredictable, but there's a beautiful synchronicity with the sextile where there is divine timing and divine alignment. And it could even be quite surprising where you think to yourself, I can't believe this came together so easily or so quickly, especially if there's anything you've been waiting on that's been delayed, stalled out, or pushed aside. This is coming in to show you the new. This is very much a new energetic imprint. And I feel like this is a week to look at what is showing up for you that is bringing you excitement about your life, that's uplifting you, that feels like it's guiding you forward into new places and spaces. Now, this is the energy I discuss in the new program I released called Manifesting with the Minor Grand Trine. And that program goes into this more specifically in your chart, since not only are Uranus in Gemini and Neptune in Aries connecting, but they're also interacting with Pluto in Aquarius, creating that minor grand trine that is like a cosmic arrow pointing you forward with Neptune and Aries at the apex. So please check out that program because it's designed to help you track what is showing up for you starting now, right now, the end of of August into 2029 and beyond. So this program is a multi-year program. And I'll just put the details below the podcast because I want to stay on track here talking about the transits. But this is exactly what you want to know because it's a big deal for us collectively and individually. And honestly, don't we want some really encouraging, optimistic astrology transits right about now? Yes, let's bring them in. So that is happening again. August 28th is when it's exact. And then the next time they'll be exact is actually after they both retrograde into the previous sign. So coming up in November, Uranus will be back in Taurus, Neptune will be back in Pisces, and they'll have another sextile in those two signs as well. Now, before August ends, on August 31st, we have Mercury in Leo trining Chiron retrograde in Aries at 26 degrees. This is where you could have good solutions, information, and news arrive. This is where Mercury is bringing Chiron something that he can apply and work with. Chiron being the original alchemist, chemist, astrologer, shaman. Mercury, the messenger, gives him something powerful and strong to integrate, and you could feel like you have a new approach and understanding on your healing journey. Mercury was in his retrograde in Leo, as we know, so he was backtracking on what he had assumed or created. He was meant to reconnect with more of his heart's desires and what he wants to focus on developing going forward. And with those realizations, Mercury takes that guidance to Chiron to strengthen your sense of self, where Chiron retrograde in Aries is helping you heal any parts of your self-identity that have lacked confidence, felt too vulnerable or insecure. This is where Chiron retrograde in Aries gets a helping hand from Mercury and Leo. The trine is reciprocal, so that means that Chiron is also assisting Mercury with some type of healing influence that he needs as well. And this could be well received, where this Mercury and Leo now realizes that's what I was meant to see in myself. That's what I was meant to understand. So this trine is mutually supportive, as all trines are. Then Mercury moves ahead and completes his time in Leo and then enters one of his favorite signs, Virgo, on September 2nd. Mercury in Virgo strengthens his analytical ability, his desire to serve, and looks at how things can be improved, whether those are systems, routines, or basic everyday habits. This is a Mercury in Virgo that has very practical skills that want to be used and often looks to make those improvements within existing conditions, existing systems. Mercury in Virgo is excellent with the details, data, and specifics. Your memory can be sharper as you recall the exact time something occurred, or you remember a date or memory quite keenly. Mercury in Virgo is where you may be ready to review something, really assess it and determine this is the plan or this is what we're getting rid of. Clarity happens when Mercury is in Virgo. And right after this ingress occurs, Mercury then has a square from Uranus in Gemini at 1 degree 22 minutes on September 3rd. Now, as I'm seeing this energy, it feels like a cut, like either a literal cut, like a paper cut, or some kind of cut, or cutting, something that is cutting, whether those are words, thoughts, or an experience. Because this Mercury in Virgo squaring Uranus in Gemini brings in some kind of surprising information, unexpected news that changes the plans, changes what you were working on. And it could feel like a setback at first. It could feel like, but I've already invested in this. I already have this going. Now everything is thrown up in the air through that erratic Uranus and Gemini. And then you realize, no, wait, this could work even better. This can mean that there are delays and setbacks in communications, transportation, meetings, and anything on your calendar could be unexpectedly rewritten. So let's call this September 2nd, September 3rd. It's a good time to remain flexible and to not expect yourself to make any important decisions, because that's exactly what will change as new information and revelations arrive. And so the cut could be cutting through the plans, cutting through the crap, cutting out the excess. You get the gist. So again, that's September 2nd and September 3rd. This Uranus in Gemini is also going to bring up more strikes and shutdowns with transportation, and that's transportation of all kinds. So whenever we have strong Uranus in Gemini energies, especially from a square, be sure you have some choices in your transportation and how you get around. Okay, so getting back to these Pisces themes that I mentioned. On September 1st, Saturn retrograde re-enters Pisces and will stay here in the final sign of the zodiac for 5.5 months until February 14th, 2026. So as Saturn re-enters Pisces, we're also going to have at the same time the North Node in Pisces, and Neptune will re-enter Pisces as well. Now, for those of you who listen to the podcast, you may recall that earlier this year, back in January, I did a special episode for you on the nodes of fate and how this rare alignment with Saturn, Neptune, and the North Node in Pisces aligns with themes from the early 16th century. That's the last time these three were together in Pisces, 1523 and 1524, when, of course, there was a lot of persecution, witch hunts, and vilification. And so that's part of what's coming up here as we move through the rest of this year. We continue these themes in Pisces. We also know we have a Pisces lunar eclipse on September 7th. And so I thought it was very important to talk about the persecution wound, sometimes called the witch wound, sometimes called the vilification wound. These stories are alive at this time. Remember, we haven't had this alignment since 1523, 1524. And when you look back on the 16th century, 17th century, 18th century, how many stories and experiences were there of vilifying people, specifically women who were powerful, women who were in their power, who were different with their energy, their focus, their priorities. And because they were so powerful, they were targeted and attacked. It reminds me of Joan of Arc. Now, earlier this year in January, I went to Mont Saint-Michel in France. I was visiting a friend of mine over in Paris, and I always wanted to go to Mont Saint-Michel. And the energy of Mont Saint-Michel is quite beautiful because it's a symbol of defiance, resistance. It's one of the few places during the Hundreds-Year War that could not be captured by the English. And the way that it was so strong and steadfast in its power inspired Joan of Arc. Now, Joan of Arc was a woman ahead of her times. It was when she was a teenager that she believed she heard God and that she had a deep connection to God. And that was her life force, her inspiration, and the guidance that she operated off of. And because of this, she was persecuted and targeted. She was burned at the stake for being a powerful woman, connected to her intuitive abilities and her power. And she wouldn't compromise or turn down her power for others, even as she was being attacked, persecuted, and vilified. In fact, you're probably very aware of the famous Joan of Arc quote, which is, "I'm not afraid. I was born to do this." She symbolizes what is also coming up within the collective at this time, where we are living in a time of a very big split in power between forces, between paths that people are consciously or unconsciously choosing. And perhaps you can see in the collective or in your own life how the persecution energies are being animated and activated by certain individuals who benefit from them, who benefit from the fighting, the aggression, the competition, the control, want people to participate in that, want people to contribute to that energy. But we're going higher. We already have elevated. We're already above these reindeer games, and we can see them for what they are. And for those of you who are on a higher path and have made a deep commitment to your own ascension, this year, 2025, has brought up those themes because the astrology of this time is activating those Age of Pisces themes and what it meant to truly be spiritual, whether you were spiritually sovereign or a spiritual servant, whether you thought you had to give your power to another, whether you could stand strong in your own divine connection and your divine sovereignty. Just as Joan of Arc was not afraid, this is a time to look at your own spiritual path and where you are being guided to stand strong in who you are. That's why I feel that this does relate to every planet in Leo that's being opposed by Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. The fear of being seen can be deeply linked to previous lifetimes of persecution. And that could be something that's coming up for you to approach differently, to go higher, to see the terrain from a whole new perspective, to be very conscious of where you put your energy, and to stand in your power of, I'm not participating in that. I'm not playing a role in that. I see what it is, and I'm not interested. It's not true. It's not real. And it only is a reanimation of previous cycles that are meant to be phased out and closed out for those who are truly embracing their 5D energy and their 5D frequencies. Your desire to not participate, not respond, not contribute to that ongoing karma is beautifully blessed, is beautifully guided. In fact, you'll find that as you focus your energy elsewhere, on what uplifts you, what empowers you, what excites you, the universe rushes in with affirmations of, yes, this is the way to go. This is what you're here for. This is where your energy is the most useful. This is where you are going to prosper. So as we move into September, Saturn returns to Pisces, again, followed by Neptune returning to Pisces in October and the Pisces lunar eclipse. All of this is opening up your own age of Pisces experiences that could be deeply connected to persecution, witch hunts, vilification, targeted attacks, anything that's meant to disempower you simply by being in your power and asserting your sovereignty without compromising it for anyone. Now, you can see this not only in the grand split in division between those who are interested in moving humanity forward, those who are committed to new earth energies and have a value system that is designed to benefit as many people as possible. And then you can see it in the contrast of those who are self-serving, power-hungry, manipulative, abusive, and believe that their energy is meant to take down others. You can also see it coming alive in a very prevalent theme of everyone calling everyone a narcissist these days, right? It's a very commonly used word at this point. It's overly used, it's misinterpreted, because true narcissism is a mental health issue that's based on your brain chemistry and patterns of behavior over time. So there's really only a very small portion of the population that's a narcissist. I was just talking with a friend the other day and he said, oh, so-and-so is a narcissist. And I was like, well, maybe, maybe not. Like, it's just such an overly used term these days that it doesn't even land. It doesn't even make sense because we're all kind of tired of it. We've all heard about the narcissist empath dynamic for years now. And I feel like the best of it is to learn from it, to be more discerning, to be wiser around a true definition and example of the energy, not simply throwing it out to describe someone or use it against someone as if it's real and valid, when it could very well be Darvo and triangulation. Of course, triangulation happens through narcissists who want to assert a power move, who want to do some type of surprise attack, who think that they can write something out that is mean and cruel and it will automatically be accepted. I can tell you from experience, I've actually dealt with that my whole life. I've stood up to it, I've called it out, I've discredited it, and now it just makes me roll my eyes. Because when you're aware of these patterns, you see them for what they are. And we're moving into this type of consciousness where now more than ever, you're going to see things for exactly what they are. You're going to feel it emotionally and intuitively. You're going to get the message, and then you're going to say, I don't even want to put my time, energy, or focus on that. I've got other things to do. I've got other priorities. I've got this stuff over here that matters to me. This is part of the grand split and divide as well. So honor this for yourself. If you are stepping away from something, if someone can't hook into your energy anymore, if you're not accessible and you're making other choices, this is exciting. And your spirit guide, your angels, your cosmic team are guiding you forward, are guiding you into these new chapters and lessons that your soul is ready for next. And so as we move into September, the Saturn in Pisces is going to bring your awareness to what you are spiritually choosing for your best and highest good at this time that is going to feel like you are unraveling away from big soul lessons and life experiences, almost like you're going through a grand rebirth that is drastically shifting and changing your energetic composition. But Saturn brings in what you have to take care of and responsibly work on. There's always work to be done wherever Saturn shows up. And it's bigger, more intense work with the North Node in Pisces and Neptune returning to Pisces. So it's bigger for us at a soul level. If you want to listen to that podcast, it's where I discuss the nodes of fate in Pisces and Virgo. It was released back on January 13th of this year, and it's called Ascending and Clearing Age of Pisces Imprints. So yes, I will have a link below this podcast if you want to listen to it. And it discusses how we're also closing out these lower Pisces energies of disillusionment, deception, propaganda, blind faith. These will continue to be big themes of our times with the Pisces lunar eclipse and Saturn, Neptune, and the North Node in Pisces. Now, Pisces also directly relates to your crown chakra. And so that's why I want to pull in the connection here to the Venus and Leo that I mentioned earlier. Standing strong in your sense of self and being brave with your connection to the divine is exactly what can heal you right now and support you. That could be where you're ready to show up and do something you've never done. So allow this to be a beautiful connection for you that aligns your full energy, that lights you up and reminds you how much you're supported at this time for being here in your light. Even if it doesn't look like that at times, even if you're not sure if it's leading you forward, the Pisces energy works behind the scenes and up in the higher realms. And I feel that this energy is certainly helping us become more integrated spiritual beings on our human journeys. Now, as we move into September, Jupiter in Cancer is now entering the territory of the Mars in Cancer retrograde experience that we had earlier this year. If you'll recall, Mars in Cancer spent 3.5 months in this sign. And so Jupiter now comes in and opens up what Mars in Cancer brought your attention to, perhaps where you felt angry, triggered, highly emotional, or reactionary. Mars in Cancer can also be very sensitive and therefore very defensive. Well, Jupiter comes in now and asks you to look at what are you learning about your emotional reactions, your emotional body, what you truly need. Are you trusting yourself more? Are you being more responsible with what you're feeling and sensing internally? Jupiter wants us to learn from experiences, to find that silver lining, to look at what was experienced that brought you new perspectives and insights. Jupiter in Cancer is, of course, a feel-good energy, and it can show you how far you've come in whatever that Mars in Cancer triggered or brought up to your awareness. Jupiter is going to be covering this territory for the rest of 2025 and into 2026. And you could start feeling differently in the Cancer areas of your chart. Jupiter will bring in the good news, invitations, resources, happy developments that maybe you've been waiting on. And of course, I certainly hope that supports anything you had to work through during the previous Mars in Cancer retrograde experience. Jupiter in Cancer is also creating a water grand trine with the North Node in Pisces and Juno and Vesta in Scorpio. So this is beautiful healing support related to that persecution wound that I just mentioned that can help you move through anything unjust and unfair, help you connect to the spiritual perspective, what you're powerfully transforming, and how to care for yourself during times of emotional turbulence or uncertainty. Jupiter begins to make an exact trine to the North Node at 18 degrees on September 2nd. And this can show you more of the higher path, higher way to trust and follow. Again, I'm feeling like this is that definite Joan of Arc energy rising up, where when you're aligned with your spiritual growth and spiritual path, you're not afraid. You know you're supported and beautifully guided, and this is something to embody even more. You may feel ready to trust yourself, to trust your intuition in a very private, internal way. This water grand trine has been unfolding since. Jupiter in Cancer is connected to the past, ancestors, our family lineage, family dynamics, our first experiences of tribe, which is the Cancer energy, as it relates to home base. It also relates to real estate, where you live, how you relax and take care of yourself at the end of a hard day. Jupiter in Cancer can also be about the good old days, when things were easier, life was simpler. It's definitely Americana and vintage themes. So in the real world here in America, there was just this big failed rebrand from a restaurant called Cracker Barrel, where the new logo removed the old timer who was a part of the brand's history and the brand's logo. So apparently Cracker Barrel spent $70 million for this rebrand. And after they debuted it, they had huge backlash. They lost $143 million because people were no longer going to the restaurant. They wanted the old timer back on the logo. They wanted it to stay as it was. So here we have a Jupiter in Cancer event where the previous tried and true logo was the one to keep. People were not open to the elimination of the old timer or the literal barrel on the logo. And so the company switched back to the previous logo because of the public outcry and how much the modernization of the logo affected their client base. And of course, their profits. Now, perhaps you've heard or at least seen all the memes about Taylor Swift now being engaged. And I just want to suggest that Cracker Barrel missed an opportunity to be the location for Taylor Swift's engagement. If she had gotten engaged at a Cracker Barrel, maybe the new logo would have been fine. Okay, in other news, it was just announced that there is now a teacherless private school happening in Virginia around Washington, D.C. It's called Alpha School. It's the first of its kind where the content and curriculum is AI driven. It costs $65,000 a year for students to spend 2 hours a day using adaptive apps and personalized lesson plans, then spend their afternoons on life skills, such as learning to ride a bike or financial literacy. I'm failing to see how this is worth $65,000, just my own opinion. And of course, there are many flaws in this model. You don't know how the testing is going to go, if the curriculum's going to be successful. There's also things around this would only be effective for certain students, those who are comfortable being independent and self-led. But the school plans to enroll up to 25 kids in grades kindergarten through third grade during the fall here in 2025. This is Uranus and Gemini. This is what I've been sharing with you, that this is a school year where a lot is going to be changing rapidly, that these new approaches to learning are being tested and experimented with, and there are challenges to traditional education. So clearly, there's going to be issues here with how this actually performs. And I know many of you are teachers and you are in educational environments. So perhaps you're seeing more of these experiments around you, more things being debuted and tested. But I thought this was worth sharing, since this is absolutely not only Uranus in Gemini, Gemini being education, early childhood learning in our everyday environments, but the trine from Pluto and Aquarius bringing in these fast-moving technology developments, dispersing AI and new unconventional approaches into many, many areas of our lives, as we know. It just helps to discuss this, as it certainly validates the astrology. So that is a look at how we close out August and move into September. I do want to give you a quick programming note that there probably will not be a Monday podcast. And that's because it is a holiday weekend here in the States. And I'm going to be offline with some friends for this last weekend in summer. There will be 9 of us sitting around the campfire, seeing who is strong enough not to look at their phone the longest. We'll see who holds out. But yeah, I'm going to be having some fun this weekend, and I don't think I'm going to have time to pre-record a Monday show. But I will have some videos for you on YouTube discussing Saturn re-entering Pisces, as well as the upcoming Pisces lunar eclipse chart, where I go through more of the specifics of the astrology of this eclipse. So as always, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you as well in Manifesting with the Minor Grand Trine program, where we touch on what's happening for you in your chart starting now into 2029. Come over and check it out. This is going to be a very rich, evolving program. New content added every year. We're doing a deep dive, and you're going to get some really important heads ups on what to plan for as we move through the rest of this decade. Wishing you a beautiful final few days of August. Thank you as always for joining me. I appreciate your time, your energy, your presence. And I look forward to connecting with you again as we move more into September. Take good care, and I'll see you back here soon.